friends. Hello, hi, how are you? I hope you guys are having an amazing day today. Hello. So today we are doing a Yass or Pass. I love the name. I will never give it up. Today we're doing a Yass or Pass, which is basically where I talk about new makeup releases and tell you guys if I'm interested in buying them or not. I peruse my good friend Trend Mood and we just chit chat about all these new makeup launches, whether they're good or they're bad. The candle of the day today is actually from, I've used this one before. It's from the Isle Co. and it's in grapevine and oak and it's actually a soy lotion candle. Fun fact, last time I used this candle, I was like, oh, I don't really know if I can tell. You're supposed to be able to like melt it and then you use the wax as lotion. And at the time I was like, I don't know if I can tell you guys if this actually like works as lotion because I didn't know, but now I definitely think that it works as a lotion. I used it and it's actually very moisturizing. Don't know if I would use it as like an everyday, but it's kind of fun like before you, like after you get out of the shower, very, very moisturizing. So like what I did was I blew it out, I took a shower, and then I came back and used some of the wax on my hands and like elbows. Very nice. 10 out of 10 would recommend. All right, let's see what we got here. I feel like brands are picking up on their kind of launches that are happening. This first thing I want to talk about is from P. Louise. She is releasing a new palette that has like 2 highlighters on the side. Here's the thing. It's a pretty palette. I like the colors. I think it's, you know, a pretty standard like Valentine's Day palette, so I think it is pretty. I just despise the Physicians Formula-esque packaging of putting the 2 highlighters in with the eyeshadows. It just doesn't feel necessary, and P. Louise palettes are massive. I have the Secret Sinner palette. I believe that's what it's called, and it is massive. It takes up a huge amount of space in my drawer, and that is with just eyeshadows. It was way bigger than I thought it was going to be based on the pictures online. So if I'm kind of going off of that, it seems like this is going to be a billion times bigger. I'm not gonna lie, it really is giving me Physicians Formula vibe when it absolutely does not have a Physicians Formula price tag. P. Louise is very expensive, especially considering if you live in the United States, which I know a lot of people who do not live in the United States are like shut up about shipping. However, if you do live in the United States, the shipping to get P. Louise products here is very expensive, which I think is something to consider when you're buying a palette. Shipping can kind of make or break things, I feel. And I just feel like overall, like this palette is pretty, but it's like a lot of other Valentine's Day palettes that you could buy right now. Those palettes are not in big, bulky packaging. For like a similar price too. Natasha Denona Love palette is gonna be a similar price to this one. Speaking of Physicians Formula, they released a collab with Exterior Glam. It's the Rosé All Day collection. Physicians Formula is very into roses. It's interesting. It looks to be... I'm sorry, I don't like this at all. I'm not gonna lie, I really hate this. Just not even because I'm sure like the products are fine, but the Physicians Formula packaging is just so outdated and wasteful, and it bothers me so much. The fact that they put whatever this thing is, it looks like a, yeah, lip color. They have a lip color and a perfume and an eyeshadow palette and a highlighter and a blush all in the same packaging. What would have been so hard to give the perfume and the lip crayon its own box, put the eyeshadows in a more normal looking thing, because right now they're like going straight down in a line, and then maybe do the blusher highlighters or whatever they are in like a separate... What is the harm of separating things, Physicians Formula? Why do we always have to have everything all mushed together to go in my drawer? Like, this is a huge box and you're really not getting that much, because once you take out that lip color and that perfume, which is what you would do, nobody would keep that in there. You have to take them out to use them. Why would you just keep them in there all the time? Like, you can use those things without using this palette. So that's just gonna be an entire half of wasted space just sitting there, all because they wanted like a compact PR-esque style packaging. They could have done this same effect and had it be like a PR style box while putting everything in its own separate boxes and packaging. So I don't like this. The colors too are also kind of boring. I guess you could create like 1 to 2 kind of standard looks with that, which for some people is really good. That's all people want sometimes. I'm sure the highlighters and blushes are pretty because I've heard their formula is really nice. I don't know about everything else though, and I'm just not interested at all. And it sucks because the main reason I'm so uninterested in Physician Formula is really because of their packaging. They came out with that rose palette and I was so interested because it was in compact, normal packaging. So if they just did that for all of their releases, I think a lot more people would be interested in what they're doing. So Melt Cosmetics is coming out with the Millennial Pink collection, and it has a palette that is, I mean, it's cute.
I'm not obsessed with this palette, I'm not gonna lie. I do think I kind of wish if they were gonna make a millennial pink like packaging, it would have just been like full on pink. Like I kind of wish that was the case. I don't know why we needed to add these like blacks and blues and everything like that. I wish they had kept it actually. I think that would be cool because if you look at it, ColourPop has been incredibly successful with their monochromatic palettes. I feel like those sell really well and people get very excited about them. I think a monochromatic look is becoming a little bit more in style, a little bit trendier. Having a monochromatic millennial pink like packaging and millennial pink all inside of it, I think would have been very cool for the brand. I think also would have been a lot of fun. I'm a little biased because I absolutely love pink eyeshadow. It's like one of my favorite things ever. However, I do think this just feels a little weird. I do kind of like though that Melts, they do have this kind of like edgier vibe to them, kind of like what Urban Decay used to have probably like 5 or 6 years ago. No, I'll give them like 2 or 3 years ago. Kind of what Urban Decay used to have. And I think it's cool that they're playing into other aspects of more like, I don't want to say edgy because I don't want to sound lame, but like more aspects of like edgier culture of this whole like millennial pink, how it's kind of almost like mocked now, you know what I mean? I think that's kind of cool and I think it's fun to see them changing up the style of everything. Not everything is just like gothic and, you know, crazy. This is definitely still on brand of being a little bit edgier and a little bit more like cool as far as packaging and like naming goes, while also being different from what they normally do. So I give them kudos for that. I think they nail like concepts 100%. I just don't always love the formula and I don't always, even though I like the concept, I don't always like the palette, if that makes sense. So Sugar Pill is actually coming out with a new palette. It is called the Capsule Collection Pink Edition. Has a bunch of colors in it. Packaging for this is cool. It is kind of neat. I saw someone comment asking how I felt about kind of the almost seemingly glorification of like drugs with packaging like this. And I guess for me, I think as long as you're not being like outwardly offensive, which I guess some people could consider this to be offensive, I feel like it looks like a Tylenol pill. So I feel like for me, it's like their whole brand is Sugar Pill. It's not like a far reach. They're not doing something crazy. It's not outwardly offensive. I think if it was like a needle or something like that could definitely be perceived differently. But I think just their name is Sugar Pill. It's in a pill packaging. Like, I guess you could argue being named Sugar Pill in the first place, but honestly, I don't think it's that incredibly deep because I don't think their intention is to like offend anyone or glorify anything. I think it's just kind of cute, different packaging that goes along with their name. I do think the colors in this are kind of interesting. Will I pick this up? Probably not. I guess I just don't really understand who this palette is marketed to necessarily, because I feel like the color story, I don't know, it's weird because it's not like rainbowed, but it's definitely not neutral. It's not leaning any sort of way. It's just kind of a random assortment of colors. And I think maybe that's super, super noticeable because of the way they have everything laid out. But regardless, I still think this is cute. I'm like a fan of doing something different with packaging. I'm curious to see how these hold up. Like, will they break easier? I don't know. And I appreciate that the Sugar Pill was like, oh, you don't like wasted space in palettes? Let's just take it out. I think that's kind of fun. But yeah, I think this is like cool. Probably won't buy it, but like, yeah, cool. I like Sugar Pill's formula. So Pat McGrath Labs is coming out with new concealers. They're going to be $32. Just seems expensive, you know? I don't know. The stuff from Pat McGrath, I watched a lot of reviews of the foundation and they were very hit or miss, but I think the general consensus was that it wasn't worth the money, the Pat McGrath foundation. So for me, I'm kind of like, I don't know if the concealer would necessarily be worth the money. And also, I do appreciate that it looks like a very good shade range, at least. I wouldn't expect anything less from Pat McGrath, but I just don't think this is something that I like desperately need unless the reviews for it are amazing. I feel like with things like complexion products, like concealers and foundations, I kind of wait for reviews from people who have a similar skin type to me. I really trust Teresa's Dead because I just think she does really, really thorough, in-depth, good reviews on things. And for the most part, we agree, we disagree on a few things, but if she loves something, I probably will also love it. So if she reviews it and she likes it, I'll probably get it. But if she doesn't, probably won't. So I see that Makeup Revolution is kind of doing a color pop. You kind of saw it was coming. Makeup Revolution is so funny because I feel like half of their brand is like legitimately good products that like they created themselves, that aren't dupes, that are really nice and well made and people really like them. Like, I love their foundation stick. I love their foundation, the Conceal and Define. I really like the concealers. And then there's this I Heart Revolution brand, which is the same brand, but with different names, that does stuff like this, where they dupe everything. Like, this is very clearly duping or at least reminiscent of what ColourPop does, which is these little 9 pans, but they put them in hearts instead. I will say I don't like Makeup Revolution's formula. I just don't. I used to buy a lot of their palettes because they were very affordable and also because they were dupes. Having tried a ton of formulas, oh yeah, so they made them cheaper than ColourPop's too. Interesting. The palettes are $7, ColourPop's are like 12, so 12 to 15 I think. So interesting. Although ColourPop has very good sales on their 9 pans. I would say, having tried Makeup Revolution's formula and knowing what it's like, I would just spend the extra like $4 and get ColourPop. They also sell those in Ulta, so you don't have to pay for shipping, and I think it would be worth it because I think the formula and the consistency is just going to be a lot better in general. So Beauty Blender is coming out with a concealer. I don't see like a full picture of the range yet, but I do think, well, I would hope that after the kind of debacle that happened after they released their foundation, that they learned that the first time around is when you need to put out like a solid shade range. I will say, to commend them, and something that I really appreciated from them was the fact that they end up expanding the shade range. They did listen to consumers and expand it to what I feel is a really good shade range, honestly. What they have now is like 1,000 times better. They added shades both sides of the spectrum. I think it's a much more well-rounded shade range. And I will give them credit for that, because kind of like what I talked about when I was talking about Kat Von D, I feel as though when you kind of call out something, or you're outraged or you're boycotting, you have to have an end goal. And I think the end goal for all of these makeup brands is to just produce better complexion ranges. So I do hope that this one is better. I hope they show that they've learned. And I think if they do, that would be really exciting. I would probably be interested in buying this again if people that I know liked it and reviewed it and thought it was good too. Marc Jacobs is expanding their coconut line, and they're coming out with the Glow Away Bronzing Coconut Body Stick. I like really want this. I actually really like Marc Jacobs products. The ones that I've tried, I've like thoroughly enjoyed. I am nervous about something like this because I know it's gonna be kind of expensive, but I will say if I go in and like swatch it and think it's good, like I'll probably get it. I have been so into cream bronzers lately, and I've been loving using like stick bronzers, kind of like this one. This one also looks like it's going to have a bit of a glow to it. It's not gonna be a matte cream bronzer, which is all I have right now. I think timing this to be released during the summer is very smart, because that is when people would want a more glowy bronzer. I think a lot of people are gonna really like that. I also think their coconut collection just does really well for them because it's really cute, on brand, packaging's adorable. They're genuinely good products. I have the coconut bronzer, the white one, and I really like it. I do not regret buying it, and I use it all the time. It's probably one of my favorite bronzers. So I would probably get this if I swatched it and thought it was good. Too Faced is coming out with this. First of all, I don't support Too Faced anymore, so I have a whole video on it. You can go watch it. I'm not gonna dive into it here, but they're coming out with these like highlighters and this palette, and I just am not interested. Even if I wasn't like against the brand kind of right now, I am just not interested in this. I'm just not. I'm not gonna lie. The palette feels very boring. It feels like every other neutral palette that exists for like twice the price. The highlighters, I don't really understand the point of having highlighters that are such similar colors. I think maybe the point is that they're different like finishes, which I guess is like okay. The middle powder is supposed to be more of a like matte satin finish. If that's the case, the very glittery powders are going to get into that. I think having products be so close together is kind of a pet peeve of mine with makeup. Products being so close to each other in a pan, when there's not like at least a little bit of space between two products, I do get a little annoyed, because I know for a fact that when you're using that product, it's gonna spill over, it's gonna get into the other products, and I just don't really like that. The palette itself, I mean, it's the natural nudes. It's literally meant to be boring, and it is. They've succeeded. I did already talk about the Jaclyn palette in a video, and I talked about how I'm not gonna buy it for sure. However, I will say I understand why people are interested in this. I understand why people are excited by this and think it's really pretty. It is a pretty palette. I think she did a good job putting together like brights. I will say, on a more critical note, is I think she honestly chopped the palette in half and it would have been so much better. I don't think it needed to be this many shades. I don't think we needed all of those neutrals and reds and all of that. I think had she just kept it to be the bright pinks, the purple with the pop of yellow, I think that would have actually been a really cool palette. Nobody really needs all of these neutral like reds and browns and things like that. Like we have all of those, especially for Morphe. And I think where Morphe kind kind of falls flat a lot of the time is the editing process. I just feel like they have too many shades in all of their palettes. The palettes that I've liked from them the most recently have been the palettes that have way less shades, are way smaller, have a more like kind of concise color story. And I think that's kind of where the market, the makeup market is leading, is kind of smaller palettes, less colors to choose from, because nobody wants to continue to buy the same shade of brown repeatedly in every single palette. So yeah, just an observation, especially with Morphe, I feel people are kind of over it. Tom Ford came out with a foundation that I will never be able to afford. So
wait, that was unintended. I'd never be able to afford. Oh, that was funny.
As most of you guys know, I don't support Jeffree Star Cosmetics, just my personal decision. However, I have a couple thoughts about this palette. So I was actually very surprised by how much I did not like this palette. First of all, the purple velvet on the outside, like the exterior packaging, is objectively like, it's gonna be beautiful. It's gonna be very luxurious. I think that's very, you know, on brand for him. However, that is gonna be so hard to keep clean and also crazy difficult to store. I've talked about this in these types of videos before, but I am a bit over oversized packaging just for the sake of having oversized packaging. Like, I'm just a little bit over it. It does kind of feel ridiculous at this point to have something be this large with that much wasted space. That's another thing that surprised me, was all the wasted space. I know with the Alien palette there was a lot of that, but I remember people not liking that. I think wasted space kind of throws people off, and that's how I feel about this palette. There's just too much not happening that makes it like kind of weird and awkward to look at. I will say too, there just aren't enough matte deepening colors for me personally. Like, if I were going to buy this, I would have a hard time creating a look with this as far as like being able to deepen, because everything is so kind of like whitewashed almost. Everything is very like pale. There's not a lot of vibrant colors, especially vibrant matte colors, because I know the black has glitter in it, which is another thing I don't like, is glittery blacks. But I also think kind of, I see why he put the teal in, because I do think a teal would complement purples well, but I think if he was gonna do that, he should have mixed in maybe at least one more teal, because kind of similar to how the Blue Blood palette had those mixes of peach in them, it was a little off-putting, but they go well together, so I understood it. Whereas this, just the one random teal doesn't feel like you're combining. It feels very random, I guess. I also irrationally dislike that like green sparkly shade. I just don't like it. Like, I just think it looks very off in this very center of this like purple palette to have this like weird green color. Again, I understand that like greens and teals go well with purple, but I wish they had like committed to it being a green and purple palette instead of just all purple with like 2 greens and teals. Does that make sense? I do think obviously people are gonna buy it, so you don't care about my opinion. But I will say objectively, I just don't really like this palette, which is interesting, because a lot of times I do like his palettes. Like, I liked Blood Sugar. I didn't really like Blue Blood, but I don't like blue eyeshadow. I liked the Jawbreaker. I thought it was pretty. But this one, he opened it in the reveal video and I was like, oh, I really don't like that. I was like, that's like, I actually don't like that. This is kind of how I felt when Alien launched. I just wasn't vibing with the Alien palette. And that's kind of how I feel about this one as well. I'm just not vibing with this at all. It feels a little too random and sporadic, and also just like light. Super, super light. He is coming out with a whole collection with that, but like, I really only think about eyeshadow palettes. So, well, I think that's it for me, you guys. I know this one might be a little bit shorter, but I hope you guys liked this video. I hope you got to hear my opinions on new releases. Let me know down below what new releases you're thinking about, what you're excited about, what you're not excited about. Yeah, let me know. I love you guys so much. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, or just like, or just subscribe, or do neither. Honestly, just so happy you're here watching me. Thank you so much for being here. My merch, my social media, and everything I'm wearing on my face will be linked down below, along with a link to register to vote. That's right. You can click on that link. You can register to vote, and you be part of your democracy. Like, a beautiful thing. If you're not from the United States, that link does not apply to you. Please make sure you're staying informed on what's going on locally, federally. Just use your voice in a positive way if you can, because the world absolutely needs more of that. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!